All right, let's play medical detective for a bit. We're going to solve a fascinating case about a single condition that's a master of disguise. It can look like a dozen different illnesses all at once. So let's dive right in. So picture this. What in the world connects something like sudden, drastic personality changes with, say, liver failure? I mean, at first glance, they seem completely unrelated, right? One's happening in the brain, the other's in your abdomen. They seem like they're from two totally different medical textbooks. Well, they're not. They are two huge clues to the exact same puzzle. This is the central mystery we're unpacking today. Okay, so our investigation has to start somewhere. And like any good mystery, it begins with the clues. In this case, the clues are the symptoms. And trust me, they are all over the map. Just look at this list. It's a real mix, right? You've got yellowish skin, which just screams liver problem. Then you have muscle stiffness and tremors, and your brain immediately jumps to something neurological, maybe like Parkinson's. And then, completely out of left field, you have severe anxiety and even psychosis. It is a real head-scratcher for doctors because all these wildly different symptoms can point back to one single underlying cause. So what's the one thing that ties all of this together? What's the culprit behind this whole confusing mess? Well, it turns out to be a heavy metal, one our bodies actually need to survive. But in this case, it's gone rogue. We're talking about copper. So here it is. Wilson's disease is a genetic disorder where the body just can't get rid of its extra copper. Now, the really important thing to get here is that it's not about eating too much copper. It's a problem with your body's, let's call it a waste disposal system. It's broken. And this is the perfect way to think about it. Your body's copper removal system is like a clogged drain in your sink. You know, you need water, right? You use it all the time. But if that drain is blocked, what happens? The water has nowhere to go. It just keeps rising and rising until it spills out all over the floor. That's exactly what's happening with copper in Wilson's disease. And where does all that overflowing copper go? Well, this shows us the two main places it backs up into. About 60% of it floods the liver, and about 40% spills over into the brain. And, boom, suddenly, those confusing symptoms from the beginning make perfect sense, don't they? You've got your liver problems, and you've got your brain and neurological problems. The puzzle is starting to come together. But that leads to the next big question. Why is the drain clogged in the first place? What's causing the blockage? To figure that out, we have to zoom way, way in, all the way down to our genetic code. And here's our guy, the ATP7B gene. You can think of this gene as the body's dedicated copper manager. Its whole job, its entire purpose in life is to grab extra copper from the liver, package it up, and ship it out of the body. This really lays it all out. With a healthy gene, everything works like a charm. Copper comes in, does its job, and the leftovers are shown the door. Easy. But with the faulty gene in Wilson's disease, that whole transport system is just broken. The manager is off the job, so the copper gets stuck in the liver, causing damage there first, and then it spills out into the bloodstream and travels everywhere, especially the brain. So, how does someone end up with this faulty gene? Well, it's what's called an autosomal recessive disorder. That's just a fancy way of saying you have to get unlucky twice. You need to inherit one mutated copy of the gene from your mom and another mutated copy from your dad. If you only get one, you're just a carrier, and you won't actually get sick. Okay, so we know the cause, we know the culprit, but how do doctors, our medical detectives, actually prove it? How do they crack the case for sure? Turns out they've got some pretty cool tools in their detective kit. This is probably the most famous clue, and it's something straight out of a movie. It's something you can literally see in a person's eyes. They're called Kayser-Fleischer Rings. You see that brownish gold ring around the iris? That's not pigment. That is actual copper that has deposited in the cornea over time. It's a huge telltale sign. Not everyone with Wilson's gets them, but when a doctor sees these, the alarm bells start ringing loud and clear. Besides looking in the eyes, doctors run a few other key tests. They'll do a blood test looking for low levels of a protein called Ceruloplasmin. You can think of it like a taxi for copper, and if there aren't enough taxis, it's a good sign something's wrong. Then they might do a 24-hour urine test to see if the body is trying to dump a crazy amount of copper out. But really, the gold standard, the final piece of evidence, is a liver biopsy. That's where they can go right to the source and measure exactly how much copper has built up. So finding the problem is half the battle. But the other half, and maybe the most important part, is figuring out what to do about it. It's all about managing that copper overload And thankfully, we have some really effective ways to do just that. The game plan for treatment is actually pretty straightforward. Step 1, remove the copper that's already built up. Doctors use special medicines called chelating agents that act like super strong magnets for copper, grabbing it so your body can flush it out. Step 2, block new copper from getting in. This is where zinc supplements come in. They're great at stopping your gut from absorbing copper from food. And finally, step 3, for the most severe cases where the liver is just too damaged, the goal is to restore function, and a liver transplant can do that. It's basically a complete cure. And of course, a big part of the long-term plan is just watching what you eat. It's not about eliminating copper completely, you can't, but it is about avoiding foods that are absolutely packed with it. We're talking shellfish, liver, a lot of nuts and dried fruits, and yeah, sorry to say, chocolate and mushrooms are on that list too. So you might be wondering, just how common is this? The answer is not very. It affects about 1 in every 30,000 people around the world. And that rarity is a huge part of why it's so tricky to diagnose in the first place. It's just not the first thing most doctors are going to think of. And we're going to end on this because it's really the most important takeaway. Yes, Wilson's disease is a serious, lifelong condition, but it's also a story about incredible medical progress. What used to be a complete mystery, often a fatal one, is now a manageable condition. The absolute key, is catching it early and sticking with the treatment. Because if you can do that, people can go on to live full, pretty normal lives. It's a complex puzzle, for sure, but it's one we've thankfully figured out how to solve.